2013, they have got approved by the FDA, US FDA. So they have been in the market for not more than a year, less than a year.
What is the reason Indian companies have not been able to use?
I think it is patent laws because I think that must be the main reason, yes.
Which pharma companies have made these?
One is Johnson & Johnson and the other is Gilead. These are the two drugs. There are many similar drugs in the pipeline, you know, exactly like the HIV drugs have gone. You have one, every year almost there's a new drug. So there are many new drugs which have been researched, but the ones which have been approved and are available commercially are a drug called Sovaldi and another drug called Olizio. Sovaldi is by Gilead and Olizio is by Johnson & Johnson. They don't completely cure, but it's supposed to be about 90% success rate, which is much higher than what is existing now, which is about 30 to 40%.
So when you say that they are going to come in 2015 to India, how exactly is it going to happen?
That's a good guess. This is all hearsay. We don't have anything available in terms of hard copies to say. But I guess there are companies, Indian companies, who are fighting for it and who want to manufacture the drugs. But there are, I think, issues with patents. And there are also issues with the drug controller who say that we need to have trials in India on this drug before we make it available. So our plea is that this is a drug which has been time tested, which has been used. I mean, why do you want to waste time for trials and why do you want to, you know, have these patent issues? Make it an emergency drug and a life-saving drug and make it available as soon as possible.
I'm sorry, I meant the new drugs, so I apologize for that.
How many patients would benefit if this drug is made available? So as of now, how many patients in your at Children's Liver Foundation or Think Foundation need this drug, approximately, say, in Bombay?
That will be a difficult figure, but we have about 900 odd patients whom we have screened, thalassemics alone, who are positive. And there will be many, many more. I mean, for every person. First of all, the screening in, you know, one way of preventing or picking it up early is that there's a real need to have these thalassemic children screened regularly, tested regularly. They don't only have hepatitis B and C problems. They have, as he said, problems with iron overload. They have heart issues. They have so many other issues. So some kind of a regular program for these children. I believe that they need drugs to remove iron from the liver because by repeated transfusions, they have excessive iron in the body. So that's another big cost for them. And we tell them now you need to spend money for the hepatitis C drug. They just kind of stare at us and, you know, what are we talking? Because they are not able to afford the iron chelators. They are compromising on that. So their iron and ferritins are very high. When the iron is too much in the liver, that liver does not tolerate the hepatitis C drug we give. So their response rates actually is even lower than the normal people because they already have a problem with the liver from the excessive iron. So it's really a double and a triple whammy for the patients with thalassemia. You know, they are coping with the blood transfusions, iron overload, effect on the heart, effect on the liver, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and then the drugs you're giving for hepatitis C are not working as well. So it's a bad scene. So that's the issue really. What was your question? I got
If
the
you
little
extrapolate,
carried
if you
away.
extrapolate from
How many patients?
Yeah.
I think, I mean, the estimated numbers in India is about 12 million hepatitis C patients. So, I mean, theoretically, every patient of hepatitis C needs treatment. Let me put it that way. Theoretically.
All of them would need the new drugs?
Theoretically, yes. I mean, all of them would need the new drug.
Please give the other figures also. I mean, B infected, C infected, and thalassemia. All in.
Thalassemia figures you will be able to give
See,
in India.
if we try to extrapolate, we will come to the conclusion that at least 15,000 patients are infected with hepatitis C in India. Yeah.
Thalassemics.
Yeah.
Thalassemics.
Only thalassemics.
Thalassemics.
And C and B?
B, you can calculate it, the prevalence is about 4 to 5%.
Percent, yeah.
It's actually a little more than hepatitis C.
4 to
5% of the population, general population.
That is hepatitis B.
B. And thalassemia is about, if on an average, 2% of the general population.
Is 15,000 2% of our population?
No. 15,000 is 10% of the number of thalassemia major patients in the country, actually.
And 10.
Those are who are C affected.
Yes.
Yeah.
C infected.
CF.
And 10% is actually an underestimate. I think it's
Maybe,
little more
maybe
than
if you
that,
look
yeah.
at the, see, I'm just extrapolating from the Mumbai thing,
Mumbai
actually.
figures, yeah.
Mumbai figures may be much lower. You know, the blood may be much safer in Mumbai than the other cities, really. You know?
Like there is one paper from Delhi where they have reported an incidence of 60%, but that was before the 2000.
We are below average or at par?
We are on the lower side of the
We are on
average.
the lower side. In Mumbai, we are on the lower side, actually. The voluntary blood donation movement is strongest in Mumbai, actually. And that completely, has a bearing on incidence of hepatitis C. And the other thing that she mentioned was, from 2002 onwards, the number of cases are a little lesser. Because, they made testing mandatory for hepatitis C. Yeah, but yeah.
What is the response from the ministry? Not got any response. When did you petition and what means? More than a month ago. Can we get the copy? No meeting so far. Nothing like this. No, it's not been told, but how many people abroad are taking this drug and what is the response?
Actually, you'll get a lot of information on the net, but response, we already have the figures. But even the American and the European governments are finding it difficult to fund. They're saying that it is taking up 25% of our medical bills, just the treatment for hepatitis C. That's the kind of cost even they are facing. So I mean, it's not that it's easy, but they do manage to get it. But not all insurance companies are happy to provide it because it's just a huge, huge cost even for them.
Suppose somebody is trying to take those drugs, or newly found drugs, okay? How long he has to take? What is the line of treatment? What is the
It is
period
3
of
to 6 months.
Okay. And that is the cost around 1.5 crores.
Yes, a 6-month treatment is coming to actually 1.8 crores when we convert it into Indian rupees.
In that case, even 1% would be 1.8 lakh.
Yes, and we just hope that even if Indian companies make it, it's at an affordable cost. You know, as I said, many patients could not even afford the existing drugs.
Are there any companies in the pipeline who are showing interest in developing or
It's fine.
Well, I don't think I'm qualified to talk about it, yes, but we have heard there are some Indian companies who are talking of making the drug.
that be names anything?
Because I don't have authentic information, it's all hearsay, so I don't want to be quoted on this.
Off the record.
Heard of Zydus and Cipla, Natco, these are the companies I've heard. But please don't quote me on this because it's all hearsay.
What is the network of NGOs working in this field, particularly for thalassemia?
Well, we as Children's Liver Foundation are been raising this issue regularly on our website and on our Facebook page. I think there is another NGO, it's called IMAC, which is, you'll get it on the net, who has actually again petitioned the government in a big way to get these drugs available. That's another big NGO I know of.
It's from
It's an international body. But they are doing it for the Indian population, to make it available in India.
What would NLM now?
I don't know whether they've done anything on this. I'm not aware.
And how much has the WHO taken note of this?
Uh, Obviously, they haven't taken much notice, I guess.
That is surprising if this so.
There is a lot of petitions, lot of marches, lot of signature campaigns all over the world actually, which is going on to get this drug available. But I don't think, I'm not aware at least about WHO doing much about it in terms of getting it available at a low cost.
So then the other part of my question earlier question would be, is the number of NGOs less to create pressure on all these bodies?
That's a difficult one. I think it's not, I think even if one NGO makes a big noise, it should be good enough than many NGOs making small noises.
Had it been so, then by this time the question would have been.
We are trying to do that. Let's see. It all depends on how you report. Yeah, I think the media plays an important role in all this.
Not only the media can do it. I mean, only media cannot do it.
I'm not saying only media, but I think we have to all do it together.
Do we have other NGOs from other parts of India also talking about it or talking to the government?
Yeah, I think, if you see, since today is the World Hepatitis Day, I'm sure people will be talking about it. Maybe it will be covered in the various states, press, locally.
They're kind of joining hands with other forums also across the country and then presenting it together.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We can think of doing that, yes.
When we're talking about kidney dialysis, the patients who are on dialysis,
Yes.
can you explain that further? Like what exactly?
No, so, patients who are on dialysis, again, it's a hemodialysis especially, is through the blood. So you have common technicians, common equipment, common dialyzer. So these are the methods in which transmission can occur in dialysis patients. And we need to follow, in fact, this is something one can talk about, what is called universal precautions, which means that you assume every patient, be it in the operation theatre, be it in the endoscopy suite, be it in the dialysis unit, you assume that every patient is hepatitis B, C, HIV positive, and you take precautions. Which means in the hemodialysis unit, you assume every patient is positive, change the equipment, change the gloves. You use heparin, which is a drug to make the blood thin, so that the tubing does not clot off in the hemodialysis unit. Now that heparin vial is one. So if you use the same syringe and needle to take out the heparin for different patients, that's the source. So you have to take precautions, assuming every patient is positive. In fact, this is a completely off the track thing, but it's very important. We have patients who have hepatitis C on dialysis. They take treatment for dialysis, and there are many dialysis units which don't take hepatitis C patients at all. They have got the hepatitis C through the dialysis units, but now the dialysis units are saying if you're hepatitis C positive, we are not going to dialyze you. That's one. The other thing is some dialysis units just separate out, and it's literally like this corner is non-C and this corner is hepatitis C patients. But everything else remains the same. The technicians remain the same, the vials remain the same. So I think there's a huge need for implementing universal precautions. And this should be across centers, across hospitals, across units, operation theatres, dialysis units, endoscopy units, where every patient is assumed to be positive and the precautions are taken. Typically the responses in the hospitals, okay, if you have a hepatitis B or C positive patient, we'll post him last. And then the equipments will be doubly sterilized and everything. But that's not the right way. The way is to assume that everybody, because if somebody comes to me with a big blood vomit and I have to endoscope that patient, I'm not going to say, okay, first check your hepatitis B, C, then I'll put the scope in. I'm going to take up the patient in an emergency and do whatever I can. So I have to sterilize my equipments, assuming he is positive, so that the next patient does not get it from there. So that, in fact, is one important way in which hepatitis C can be prevented, or even HIV or hepatitis B can be prevented in the hospital setup or in a medical setup.
So right now, Imran, you're not on any medications.
For Hep C, no.
How old are you?
I'm 29.
When were you diagnosed with Hep C?
5 years back? Yeah, 5 years back.
Yeah, very much. I mean, jaundice is just a symptom. It literally means yellow eyes. And you could have jaundice due to a whole range of causes, of which hepatitis C is one of them. But it's not the commonest cause of jaundice. Because I told you that hepatitis C is a silent virus. So when you get it acutely, you don't have any symptoms. They will get jaundice once they have full-blown cirrhosis and the cirrhosis progresses. But yes, it's a symptom of hepatitis C. But the commonest symptom in our country, commonest cause of jaundice in our country is hepatitis E, which is transmitted through food and water.
So there are absolutely no signs.
In the beginning, no. It may take 15 years for you to develop signs of hepatitis C.
Preventive tests that one can go for.
So anybody who is high risk, like all thalassemics, all hemodialysis patients, all who are high risk should be tested for hepatitis C. But, again the same problem, it may be missed in the window period.
Children, right after birth, if he's having jaundice, how much their possibility to have it?
Very low. Typically, children have jaundice naturally, or it is some genetic cause which causes jaundice in children at birth. But children can develop hepatitis C through what is called vertical transmission. If the mother is hepatitis C positive, there's a 5% chance that the child can develop hepatitis C. 5 to 10%. Actually, we are having a meeting where we'll have some talks after this. You're most welcome to stay back for the talks if you wish, where we'll be talking to all patients of thalassemia and their caregivers. And we also have the blood bank personnel who are here, who are actually taking care of these patients on a day-to-day basis, who will be talking. So, are there any more questions?
I think they've fairly covered everything.
Yeah, you can get the children inside. So thank you very much. And if you would want to interact with any of the patients and children, if they're okay with it, you feel free to do so. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.